Hi all, hope you're doing great. Today we are going to talk about the cash and how it is used, what are the benefits, what are the disadvantages of it. Yeah, there are like several type of caches, and I guess most of you at least know about what some type of caches you have come through in your life. Like when we buy the CPU, we have one type of cache. We also, when we build a computer desktop or buy a laptop, we have the RAM, which is essentially a type of cache. And there are caches being used all over the internet. So today we will be mostly focusing on the internet part, especially the backend side, where we cache things, and we will just be going through the high level things of cache for the very beginners. So if you're very familiar with the cache and are more interested into the advanced things, so keep an eye out. Probably I will be sharing information about those in future lectures, but for this one we will focus on the basics of cache, like what is the cache, how it is actually used in these days in backend, and what are the benefits we're getting out of it, what are the disadvantages, stuff like that. So let's start with what is a cache. Let's see what Wikipedia says about it. So in Wikipedia, what they are saying is, in computing, a cache is a hardware or software component that stores data so that future requests for that data can be served faster. Okay, that is important thing, so that it can be first after. Okay, that served faster, that is one agenda for using a cache. Okay, the data stored in a cache might be result of an earlier computation or a copy of data stored somewhere else. Okay, what does that means is, cache does not necessarily needs to be some data, some of some heavy computation. It could just be a data which were stored somewhere, prefer most possibly in database, but we want to serve it faster and in large scale. That is why we are caching it, so that for the same request we do not hit the database. What I mean by that, we will see with the diagrams and details. Don't worry if you don't get it right now, and if you get it, that is a great sign. So let's get started. Okay, so what we understand from here, so caching or cache is some sort of software or hardware that stores data temporarily, so that when the user asks it again and again, we can serve it in a faster way. Okay, if you get it, that is great. You can just keep a minute. If you don't get it, I will give you an example for this. Suppose you work in an office as a clerk, and clients come to you for information regarding some file. So they come with some file number maybe, and ask you that, okay, can you tell me information that is stored in the file, maybe some property or something like that. And these files, these are stored maybe in a hard form, like written, and stored in a big room, where you have to get out of your desk, go to the room and fetch that file, and then, okay, say that, okay, this is your file and this is the information. So this is your job. So what you noticed is, some files are being used more than the other files. Yeah, the more clients are coming for information for some files other than those other files. So what you have to do is, maybe for a handful number of files, maybe for 20 or 50 files, you have to go to that room, like maybe 500 or 1000 times per day, which is a lot for you, and it takes a lot of effort from your side. So being a smart person, what you did is, you listed what were those important files, and you just bought those bring those files to your desk, so that next time when a client comes, you can just say that, okay, this is the file you're looking for, this file is has this information. You do not have to get up from your desk. Essentially, this is what actually a cache does. A cache is a convenient way for us to give an answer faster, without going through so much hassle of going to another room and picking those stuff. Okay, so we will see how this story translate into a digitalized version, or in our backend systems. Okay, let's go to that. So how a cache is used in our day-to-day life. Okay, for example, the scenario we just discussed about, like getting a file. Let's now think about in this way, that instead of file you have a news website where users comes with maybe some users shared a link of your news article to other users. So the user comes to your server with a request saying that, okay, you to your website, that okay, get me the news for this link, the exciting news, get me this exciting news. So usually, and normally what we do is, we have in backend we have a server, and the server requests the database where actually the data is stored. So the server normally requests the database, and the database gives back whatever is needed, like the title and every data from here. It gives, okay, I will just for simplicity, this is not very user friendly, so I will not add it, but the database gives back to the server the news article, and the server returns to the user. Okay, everybody is happy, that is a good thing. This is a very good happy path, we are happy. So what is the catch in here, not cache, catch in here? The catch is the database, though it's a very durable and very reliable system, it's not that much scalable, especially the relational databases. They are hard to scale by itself. You have to do a lot of magic to actually scale it. So when a lot of users, for example maybe 10,000 users comes to your website at a time and ask for the same news article or different news articles, your database get really overwhelmed, and it really becomes the bottleneck of the system, so that yeah, your whole system becomes very slow, only because of you're trying to get a lot of data from the database at a time. So how can we solve for this scenario, or when your website becomes very popular, or maybe a news article becomes very popular, so that a lot of people is just want to see that news article? What we can do is, we can introduce a cache in here, just like bringing those stuff in a convenient place, so that you do not have to run to that room every time. So what we can do is, when we get a request for the exciting news, we can check the cache, that okay, cache, tell me if you have this news or not. If you have it, we will just serve it from the cache, so we do not have to call the database for this case. And this helps because the properties of cache is, it's a very fast data storage system. So compared to the databases, because the databases stores the information in the hard drive or SSD, and the cache actually stores it in the memory. So because of this, and it's like a pretty known thing that the memory, though it's more expensive, sorry, I will just I've been talking a lot, sorry. Yeah, the memory is like it's like more fast, I would say. Yep, it's just more fast than the typical hard disks. So I will try to cut it, but I'm not sure. I'm just starting this stuff, so you may have to bear with this coughing as well. Sorry. Okay, so because of this, we can serve the request pretty fast. So that is like the main benefit of cache. So yeah, that is like the main benefit of cache. Whatever computation we have done in our server, or whatever data we stored in our database, if it is used, it is being used many times without getting changed, that is like a very good sign to use a cache, so that we do not query the database many times, or do not do a heavy computation in our server many times. Okay, what are some use cases in cache? That is like one that I said, like the hot data, like some of your news article got really popular, or maybe you are building a site like Amazon, some of the product got really popular, stuff like that. Or maybe you wanted to you want to show a counter somewhere, like how many times a product is being bought, or like how many visitors you have in your site. So every time a visitor comes to your website, maybe in every page or most of the page, you want to show that counter. So what will happen is, if you want to query the database, you have to query for each of the time your page is loaded, you have to query the database for this counter. That is not like a very good thing for your database. So for that also you can use the cache. Also, what are some other things to handle spike, like what I said, like maybe usually you get only 1,000 users per day in your website, but suddenly for some popular news you got like 10,000 users concurrently or something like that, or maybe 10,000 users in an hour or so. That is like a huge thing for your system to handle, because usually you will try to keep your cost low and everything. So then also you can use the cache. Other than that, also we can use it for session and token storage. Like if you tokenize your system, you have to authenticate for many of the calls, so you can just keep the token mapping in the cache, so that you can do a faster validation without calling the database. And also for gaming it can be useful. Okay, so benefits of using a cache. Okay, what are the benefits of using a cache? The main benefit of using a cache is saving computation or money. Like like your system may be able to handle 1,000 users concurrently, or 1,000 requests concurrently. And what you noticed is actually, and this is the case in most of the systems, that if you get 100 requests, it's not 100 requests, maybe if you request for 100 resources, you will see that only 20 of the resources are being requested in the 80 times of request. It's like a generic rule, 80/20 rule, but it occurs throughout many systems many times. So you will see that a handful number of resources are being served for majority of the requests. So in this case, normally you would have to scale your system vertically to be easier, horizontally eventually, but basically you have to scale your system high, and that costs. So you can save money by using a cache. And also it improves performance. How come it improves performance? Suppose with your system you can handle these clients, but to serve one request, maybe your server takes 10 milliseconds. So in a second you could serve 100 requests or so, or maybe your server takes 1 millisecond, for example. So you need you can serve 1,000 requests per second. But if you use a cache, now your latency will go down. Like for example, maybe it only takes a macrosecond to serve a request. So now you can serve like 10 to the power 6 requests per second for from the same hardware, just by adding a cache, because you are not hitting the database, which is usually the bottleneck in the system. So you can like query a lot. And the third one is reduce latency. It is like kind of like connected with the performance thing. So as your performance gets better, you have the response ready in less time. So it will by product reduce the latency. Okay, what is the disadvantage of cache? Okay, before that, do we okay, this one comes after this. So the main disadvantage of cache is the data inconsistency. Okay, first I think we have to talk a bit about what is data inconsistency. Data inconsistency is when you query your system for some data, and the system gives you some result, but the result is not the most updated one. For example, maybe for the newspaper app, you publish the newspaper and it is cached, Let's go to this one. Maybe you publish some newspaper and it is cached in the in the cache it is stored, but you found some discrepancies in the newspaper, the article you published, and you maybe some typos and stuff, so you updated those and it is safely updated in the database. But for some reason it is not yet updated in the cache. Now if a user comes with the same news article, and the server will try to fetch the data from the cache first, it will see that okay, the news article is present in there, and it will give the user the news article with the typos. So that is not really a good thing, especially if it is it involves money in some type, or something, some critical data, like user's password, or something, some stuff like that, or authentication stuff like that. So essentially it can bring a hazard in the system, in case of GitHub, there was a case with cache invalidation there, that people could see, I think, private repos or something like that happened. So these things can happen, and this is like the biggest disadvantage, and a very tough challenging thing to achieve in the distributed system, especially because there you do not have a single cache, but a set of caches, and the data storage is also like replicated, and it's becomes much more complex in that case. And data inconsistency actually goes hand in hand with cache invalidation. Cache invalidation is basically, we can say that, updating the cache with the latest data. Let's see that, and let's talk about that a bit more. We won't go too deep into this, but let's talk about a bit on this. Okay, so cache invalidation. What is cache invalidation? We know we have to update the cache. Why we have to update the cache? Because the cache is usually a secondary data storage, a secondary temporary data storage, where we do not really store the data for longer term, or do not use it as a single source of the source of truth. Okay, source of truth. What is source of truth? We need to talk a bit about that as well. Let's go to that. The source of truth is, when we talk about an internet system, and especially distributed system, a single information can be present in multiple places, actually a variety of places. For example, you are using this newspaper. Your newspaper app may be present in the mobile, may be present in the website, maybe there could be desktop app. So each of it may have its own cache. Like in the mobile, when you download a news article, maybe next time when the user comes, you do not load it from the server right away. What you do is you show him the downloaded version of the web page. So now you have many sources of the information, but to be very sure about what is the most updated version of an information, you have to have a single source, which you can say that okay, this source is the most updated version of this data, and wherever there is a discrepancy with this source, I will update that data with my source of truth. Usually the source of truth in a system or distributed system is the database. There can be exceptions, but usually database is this single source of truth. And whenever we update the database, we want to update anything else that is dependent on the database, like the redis cache here. And so I will just do a short recap before going to these things, these slides. Okay, what is cache invalidation? Cache invalidation is just updating the cache. And why do we need to update the cache? Because the cache is usually not the single source of truth. So whenever we update our source of truth, anything else that is dependent on the source of truth, aka our cache, needs to be updated. That is why we need to update the cache, aka invalidate the cache, so that when our user comes, we give them the latest data. Okay, so there can be two types of cache invalidation or cache update, whatever you can say. One is write through and one is write back. So what is write through? You can actually get the sense from the names. Write through is when you write through the cache, and write back is when you write back to the cache. So let's focus on the write through cache. For example, write through cache is like this. Okay, this is not true. It suppose it is an update operation. Suppose you found some issue with this article, and now you want to update this one. So you query to the server that, okay, for this article I am sending you the updated payload, and just update that one. What a write through cache will do is, first it will update the cache with the updated data you are sending. So it will write to the cache that, okay, whatever the website or web page stored for this one in our cache redis, just delete that one. Just delete that one, or update that. In a sense, that is the same thing. Okay, but I have been talking after a few days, I mean a lot of days, that is why I'm talking a lot. But anyway, bear with me. So yeah, just update the cache, and once we get a confirmation that the cache is updated with the latest data, we update the database. What is the benefit of this one? The benefit of this one is, next time when some user comes and asks that, okay, give me the web page for this new server, we have the latest data in our cache already, even before the database updated. So we will for sure give the user the most recent version. But there can be a there can be a drawback of this one, is like, what if we only update our cache, and then we forget to update our database. Not forget as in, like, our system maybe crashes, or some error happens, some connection drops with the database, and we could not update the database for that specific web page. So eventually, after some time, our cache will maybe drop it off, or if our cache restarts or something like that happens, our data will be lost. So that is like one issue with the write through cache. A same type of issue can occur in the write back cache. Let's see what is the write back cache. Write back cache is, suppose we have the update operation in here as well. Update. Okay, maybe update this website, we call with the updated web page, and the server, what it does first is writes to the database, and once we get a confirmation from the database, okay, there's it is safely stored, then we update the cache with this one, with the data. So in this case, as a result, what happens is, as a result, what happens is, when the user calls next time, we then will get this information from the cache and return to them. But the thing is, since we are updating the cache later, it could be the case that while we are updating the database, a user queries for this one, and from the cache we are giving them the stale data, even though the database is already updated. Or one another thing that can happen is, the database is updated, but while updating the cache, our system dies, or connection breaks off, something like that happens, some exception happens, and we did not update the cache. One good thing about this is, since our source of truth is updated, eventually we can expect that our cache will also be updated. Yep, that is like a good thing, and that is the bad thing. Another thing that could be done to make the cache maybe a bit more consistent with the source of truth is, when we try to update some database data, what we can do is, first we can delete it from the cache, and then we update the database, and then we update the cache. This way, what happens is, when the user requests next time, if our database is updated, we will get the updated data from the database already and stored in the cache. So this way we will have a bit less chance of inconsistent data, but still it can happen, because it could be the case that we delete from the cache, and then we try to update the database, and exactly that time some user request our server. So what we will see is we do not have the data in the cache, so we will go to the database and we will try to fetch the data, and depending on the transaction isolation level, there could be, I think there could be a case where we still get the stale data. I'm not 100% sure, but that could also be a case, probably interesting. Maybe I should look it up more. Okay, but apart from this, I think these are the basic things that we can say about caches, and how we can use those. And apart from these, some popular caches are redis and memcached. These are being used widely, especially the redis, I think is the most popular cache that is being used today. And also, do you know the cdn is actually a type of cache? For those of you who do not know, CDN is the content delivery network, which is basically, we can say, a cache for mostly images and videos or static files. And it is a geo distributed cache that is used by like every big websites that you can name, for a reason. Like what we saw is like cache actually delivers things faster, right? But still there is an issue in the internet that whenever distance increases, like when you are, or when we are talking about one from one continent to another, the speed of the data, not speed, the time of the data coming through also increases. This is called latency. The latency also increases. So essentially, after you have optimized your server, it really comes down to the point that you have to really be close to your user. So the big websites and big corporations, what they do is they keep multiple copies of their data closer to the user's continent or country, so that when the user request, it doesn't go to another continent, the request doesn't go to another continent to fetch the data, but it just goes to some server within the country or within the continent, so which becomes much faster. So this is actually called the CDN, the content delivery network, which actually does these stuff. And yeah, there are like organizations that builds this content delivery network. Maybe we can focus a episode on this one as well. But yeah, it is essentially a type of cache. So this goes our today's session on the basics of cache. If you find it helpful, or if you like to know anything else, if you like to get a bit deep on the caches, or see like how it is used in code, or how it actually scales the a system while using in the code or in a server, I'd be happy to look into those things as well. So yeah, hit me up with any feedback you have, guys. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. I hope it helps somebody in some way, and have a good day. Bye.